They sat at that table laughing, his father, his brother, his father's new wife. The table was covered in food, there were candles lit, there were glasses being raised, and Marcus was not there, he had not been invited. He found out about the dinner 3 days later when his brother accidentally sent him a photo meant for someone else. A big family dinner, birthdays celebrated, a toast made. And Marcus had been 10 minutes away the entire time, sitting alone in his apartment eating leftovers, not knowing he had been quietly cut out of his own family one more time. That was not the first time, that was not the 10th time, that was just the time Marcus finally stopped making excuses for people who had never once made one for him. And what happened next changed everything. Not just for Marcus, for all of them. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something real. Think about the last time someone who was supposed to love you made you feel invisible, not by accident, but on purpose, quietly, consistently over years. Now ask yourself, at what point does staying become something you are doing to yourself? Because that is the question Marcus had to answer. And his answer did not come in the form of a speech or a fight, it came in the form of a decision. Stay with this one. Because the part that will hit hardest has not happened yet. If this story finds you at the right moment, drop something in the comments when it does. Marcus was the kind of man who remembered everything but complained about nothing. He remembered every birthday in the family. He remembered his father's medication schedule during the bad year after the surgery. He remembered which cousin needed money quietly, which aunt was going through something she did not want to name out loud, which family gathering needed someone to arrive early and set everything up without being asked. He was the one who showed up. He was the one who fixed things before they broke. He was the one who made peace before wars started. And for 20 years, he told himself that was enough, that doing good was its own reward, that family was worth the effort even when the effort was entirely one-sided. He was wrong. And the proof arrived in the form of an accidental photo, a missing name on a trust document, and a voicemail left on the wrong phone. But let us start where it actually started, not with the photo, not with the trust. Let us start with the night Marcus was 12 years old and his father sat him down at the kitchen table and told him very calmly that he was moving out, not that the marriage was ending, not that things were hard, just that he was moving out and that Marcus needed to be the man of the house now and that he expected Marcus to behave accordingly. Marcus was 12. His sister Diane was 9. His mother sat in the next room and did not come out. His father left 2 hours later with 2 bags and a box. And Marcus went to his sister's room, sat on the floor next to her bed and held her hand until she fell asleep. He did not cry, he did not ask questions, he became at 12 years old exactly what his father told him to be: responsible, quiet, useful. His father remarried 4 years later, her name was Sylvia, she had a son from her first marriage, his name was Brett. Brett was 15 when Sylvia and Marcus's father got married. Marcus was 16, and from the first weekend Marcus spent at his father's new house, something felt wrong, not dramatically wrong, not in a way he could point to easily, more like the temperature in a room being slightly off. You are not cold enough to say it is cold, but you are never quite warm. Sylvia was polite to Marcus in the way that people are polite to someone they are tolerating. She asked how school was, she passed the bread, she smiled when his father was in the room. When his father was not in the room, she became quiet in a different way. Her eyes moved away from Marcus. Her sentences got shorter. The house felt smaller when it was just the two of them in it. Brett was worse. Brett was the kind of teenager who had learned very early that his mother would not correct him in front of other people. So he said things with the safety of knowing nothing would happen. He called Marcus uptight. He called Marcus too serious. He told Marcus once while their parents were outside that Marcus only came around because he wanted something from their dad. Marcus was 17. He looked at Brett for a long moment and said nothing. He got up, went outside, helped his father with the yard, and drove home 2 hours later. He told himself Brett was just a kid. He told himself Sylvia just needed time to get comfortable. He told himself his father was trying his best. He told himself all the things that kept the peace. He kept telling himself those things for the next 20 years. Here is what those 20 years looked like. Marcus graduated high school with honors. His father did not come to the ceremony. There was a conflict, his father said, something with Brett's baseball tournament. Marcus congratulated Brett later and said nothing about the graduation. Marcus got a full scholarship to a state university. His father called and said he was proud and that he and Sylvia were going to take Brett to dinner to celebrate and maybe Marcus could join next time. Marcus said that sounded good. He went back to studying. He graduated university with a degree in accounting. His father and Sylvia came to that graduation. Brett did not. During the dinner afterward, Sylvia talked mostly about Brett's plans to start a small business. Marcus smiled and asked questions about Brett's business the entire meal. His father seemed relieved that the dinner went smoothly. Nobody asked Marcus about his plans. Marcus built his career quietly and well. He got a job with a mid-sized accounting firm. He got promoted twice in 5 years. He bought a small house. He sent his mother money every month because her job at the school district did not leave her with much after bills. He called his sister Diane every Sunday. He showed up at family events when invited. He helped with his father's taxes for free every year because his father asked him to, and Marcus said yes because that was what Marcus did. He said yes, he helped, he showed up. He stayed quiet when he should have spoken, he absorbed things that would have broken other people, and he kept telling himself it was fine. He kept telling himself the distance was just the natural result of a blended family still finding its shape. He kept telling himself that his father loved him even when his father showed it poorly. The first real crack appeared when Marcus was 31. His grandmother on his father's side, a woman named Eleanor, passed away. Eleanor had always been kind to Marcus. She was one of the few people in that side of the family who called him just to talk, not because she needed something. When she passed, Marcus assumed he would be part of the funeral arrangements. He drove 4 hours to his father's city the day after he heard the news. When he arrived at the house, the planning was already done. Sylvia had handled it, the flowers were chosen, the readings were chosen, the reception menu was chosen, Brett was listed as a pallbearer, Marcus was not. His father seemed genuinely surprised when Marcus asked about it. He said there had been a communication problem, he said it all happened fast, he said he was sorry. He looked genuinely sorry, and Marcus, being Marcus, said it was fine. He sat in the front row at the funeral, he held it together. He gave his grandmother a quiet goodbye and drove 4 hours home in the rain. What Marcus did not know at the time was that Eleanor had left a small amount of money to each grandchild in her will. Not a large amount, enough to matter as a gesture. Marcus never received anything. He did not find out about the will for another 3 years. He found out by accident when his cousin mentioned it during an unrelated phone call. He found out that every grandchild had been contacted except him. He found out that his father had been the one handling the distribution. He never brought it up, he filed it away. He told himself there was probably an explanation. He told himself he would ask someday. He did not ask. He kept going. Marcus was 34 when he met a woman named Carla. She was warm and perceptive, and from the very first time she met Marcus's family, she saw things clearly that Marcus had trained himself not to see. She noticed that Sylvia never once asked Marcus a personal question during family dinners. She noticed that Brett interrupted Marcus every time he started a sentence and that nobody at the table reacted to it. She noticed that Marcus's father talked about Brett's business constantly and never once asked Marcus about his career, even though Marcus was the one who quietly managed his father's personal finances every tax season. She noticed that Marcus's name was not on a single photo in his father's house. Not one. She pointed this out to Marcus one evening on the drive home. Marcus was quiet for a long time, then he said he had never noticed. But the truth was somewhere between that and a thing he had noticed and buried so deep it had stopped feeling like a wound and started feeling like weather. Just something that was always there. Carla pushed him gently over the following months to talk to his father, not in a way that was about confrontation, just in a way that was about being seen. She told Marcus that a man who gave as much as he gave to that family deserved to at least be known by them. Marcus knew she was right. He arranged a lunch with his father, just the two of them, at a restaurant near his father's office. Over that lunch, Marcus said something he had never said out loud before. He told his father that he sometimes felt invisible in the family. He said it carefully. He said it without accusation. He left so much SB. Ace for his father to respond well. His father listened. He nodded. He stirred his coffee. And then he said that Marcus was too sensitive and that he had always been too internal and that if Marcus felt left out, maybe Marcus needed to put in more effort to be present instead of waiting for people to come to him. Then he changed the subject to Brett's business expansion. Marcus paid the bill. He drove home. He told Carla it went okay. She looked at him for a moment and then said nothing, because she knew what okay meant when Marcus said it. The photo arrived when Marcus was 38. His brother, a half-brother from his father's first years with Sylvia, a young man named Cole who Marcus had always tried to be kind to despite the complicated math of their family, sent it by accident. A group photo, his father, Sylvia, Brett, Cole, Brett's wife, and two of Sylvia's sisters, candles on the table, a cake with his father's name on it. His father was turning 60. Marcus did not know a party was being planned. He had not been called. He had not been texted. His father's 60th birthday had been celebrated without him 3 days earlier, and the only reason Marcus found out was because his brother sent the photo to the wrong contact. Cole called immediately after, panicked, apologizing. Marcus told him it was fine. He put the phone down. He sat on the floor of his kitchen, and something that had been bending in him for 26 years finally stopped bending. He did not call his father that night. He did not call the next day. He sat with it. He let himself feel it completely for the first time in his life instead of immediately reaching for an explanation that made it hurt less. He talked to Carla. He talked to his sister Diane, who had her own version of the same story and had been waiting years for Marcus to be ready to hear it. He talked to a therapist for the first time, a man named Dr. Osei, who asked Marcus one question in their first session that Marcus had never been asked before. He asked Marcus, "When was the last time someone in your father's family did something for you without needing something in return?" Marcus sat there for a very long time. He could not answer. Dr. Osei did not tell Marcus what to do. He gave Marcus something better. He gave Marcus a framework for seeing. He helped Marcus understand that what he had been experiencing was not a series of individual oversights or communication failures. It was a pattern, a consistent years-long pattern in which Marcus was treated as someone whose presence was useful but whose personhood was optional. Marcus was needed for free tax work. Marcus was needed to be the dependable one at hard moments. Marcus was needed to maintain the peace at family events, but Marcus was not needed at birthday dinners. Marcus was not needed on pallbearer lists. Marcus was not needed in family photos. Marcus was not needed in his grandmother's inheritance distribution. The pattern was not accidental, the pattern was structural. And now that Marcus could see the structure, he could not unsee it. He began to do something he had never done before. He began to document, not obsessively, not angrily, methodically the way an accountant documents a discrepancy. He went back through his emails and found 7 years of correspondence where he had offered help, completed tasks for his father's household, and received no acknowledgement. He found 3 years of tax returns he had prepared for free, for which his father had never once said thank you in writing. He found email chains in which plans were discussed for family events, and his name simply never appeared, not as someone excluded but as someone who did not exist in the planning conversation at all. He found a message from Sylvia to his father from 5 years ago that had been accidentally forwarded to Marcus in a long chain. In it, Sylvia referred to Marcus as your outside obligation. Not your son, your outside obligation. That phrase sat in Marcus like a stone. He showed it to Carla. She read it twice. She set the phone down and held his hand and did not say anything for a while. Then she said, Marcus, I need you to understand something. This is not about you being too sensitive. This is documented. This is real. And you need to decide what you are going to do with it. Marcus decided not to do anything yet because the story was not finished. Because the thing that was really at the center of all of this had not revealed itself yet. And Marcus, for all his patience, had a feeling that if he waited just a little longer, the full picture would arrive on its own. He was right. It arrived 8 months later in the form of a phone call from a lawyer named Patricia Henshaw. Patricia Henshaw was the attorney handling the estate planning for Marcus's father. She called Marcus's number because Marcus was listed in an earlier version of a document, and she needed to verify some information. She was not calling to tell Marcus anything substantial. She was calling for a routine clarification. But in the course of that brief call, she let slip, as professionals sometimes do when they assume the person they're calling already knows everything, that Marcus's name had been removed from his father's estate plan 2 years prior. She caught herself quickly. She became professional and careful. She said she could not discuss the details with Marcus directly. She apologized for the confusion and ended the call. But Marcus had heard what he needed to hear. He had been removed 2 years ago without a word. He called Diane immediately. Diane was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Marcus, I found out about that 6 months ago. I was trying to figure out how to tell you. Marcus asked her how she found out. She said she had overheard a conversation between Brett and Cole at a family gathering she had attended without Marcus. Brett had made a comment, casual and confident, about how the split was going to be cleaner now. Diane had not understood it at the time. She had asked Cole about it afterward, and Cole, who was not a bad person but was weak in the way that people are weak when they are afraid of conflict, had told her just enough for her to understand that something had been changed. Diane had spent 6 months afraid to tell Marcus because she did not know how he would react. She was afraid he would fall apart. Instead, Marcus was completely calm. Diane was not sure if that was better or worse. Marcus spent the next 3 weeks gathering information carefully. He was an accountant. He understood documentation. He understood how to read financial records, property records, and legal filings. He knew what was public and what was not. He found the property records on his father's house and 2 rental properties. He found that one of the rental properties had been transferred into a joint LLC 2 years ago. The LLC included his father, Sylvia, and Brett, not Cole. Not Marcus, not Diane, just Sylvia and Brett. He found the business registration for Brett's company. His father was listed as a 50% investor. He had not known that. He found through a legal public records search that his father had filed an updated will 2 years ago with a law firm in the city. He could not see the contents, but he now had a timeline. The same year Sylvia called him an outside obligation in that forwarded email, the estate was restructured. The same year. He put the dates side by side in a spreadsheet. He looked at it for a long time. He also did something else. He pulled every tax return he had prepared for his father over the past 9 years. He had done the work for free. He had never charged a cent. Over 9 years, at a conservative market rate for the complexity of his father's returns, Marcus had provided approximately $42,000 in free professional services. He was not calculating this because he planned to send an invoice. He was calculating it because he needed to understand the full shape of what had been happening. He needed to see it completely. And when he saw it completely, as a financial picture, as a documented pattern, as a stack of evidence arranged in chronological order on his kitchen table, he felt something he had not expected. He did not feel rage. He felt clarity, deep, clean, irreversible clarity. He stopped doing his father's taxes that March. He sent a short email saying he was no longer available to provide that service and that his father should contact a CPA. He gave no explanation. He gave no emotional statement. He just stopped. His father called. Marcus did not answer. His father left a voicemail saying he was confused, that Marcus always did the taxes and that the deadline was coming. Marcus listened to the voicemail once. He did not call back. He forwarded the contact information for 2 reputable CPAs in his father's city and said nothing else. His father called again 3 days later, more frustrated this time, saying this was not how family acted. Marcus did not respond. His father stopped calling after that. Over the next 4 months, Marcus reduced his contact with his father's household methodically. He stopped attending family events on that side. He stopped being available for the small favors that had become so normal they were invisible. He stopped answering calls from Sylvia's number entirely. He did not send a message announcing any of this. He did not write a letter. He did not give anyone the satisfaction of a dramatic exit. He simply became unavailable, quietly, consistently. Without explanation, and he found that the silence on the other end was enormous. Nobody called to ask if he was okay. Nobody reached out to check in. Nobody noticed that the person who had been filling in the gaps for 20 years had stepped back, or if they noticed, they said nothing. That silence was its own kind of answer. Carla watched all of this. She was careful with him. She asked him one evening whether this was grief or whether this was freedom. Marcus thought about it. He said it was both. She nodded. She made dinner. They ate quietly. It was one of the best evenings Marcus could remember, not because anything dramatic had happened, but because he was present in his own life for the first time in a very long time instead of spending his energy managing the comfort of people who did not think about his. Diane, in the meantime, had been doing her own processing. She was 3 years younger than Marcus and had spent her adult life watching her brother absorb the family's disregard without complaint. She called Marcus one Sunday and told him she was done attending events on that side too, not in protest, not as a statement, just because she had finally admitted to herself that those events had never made her feel like family. They had made her feel like a guest at someone else's party. Marcus understood exactly what she meant. Cole reached out 6 weeks after Marcus stopped responding to his father. Cole was nervous on the phone. He was clearly trying to gather information to bring back to the family rather than genuinely connecting with Marcus, and Marcus could hear it. Marcus was kind to him but gave nothing away. Cole said their father was upset. Marcus said he was sorry to hear that. Cole said their father did not understand what had changed. Marcus said some things take time to understand. Cole asked if Marcus was coming to the 4th of July gathering. Marcus said he had other plans. Cole hung up not knowing what to do with any of that, which was exactly the point. The 4th of July gathering happened without Marcus. Brett apparently made a comment at the gathering overheard by Cole that Marcus was being dramatic and that nobody had done anything wrong. Cole relayed this to Marcus not because he agreed with Brett but because he felt Marcus should know. Marcus thanked him, he filed it. Brett calling him dramatic from across a table where Marcus had not been invited was almost beautiful in its completeness. Then came August, and August brought something that changed the shape of everything again. Marcus received a phone call from his father, not a voicemail. His father called and Marcus, for the first time in months, answered. His father's voice was different, not the frustrated, slightly self-righteous voice of the earlier calls, different. He asked Marcus if they could meet. Marcus said he would think about it. 3 days later, he agreed to meet for coffee at a neutral location. He brought nothing. He planned to say almost nothing. He was there to listen. His father came alone. He sat down across from Marcus and he looked older than Marcus remembered. His father said he was sorry that Marcus had been hurt. He said that he knew things had not been fair. He said that Sylvia was a difficult woman and that over the years he had made choices to keep his household at peace and that some of those choices had come at Marcus's expense and that he was sorry for that. It was the closest thing to an apology Marcus had ever heard from his father. It was also incomplete. It did not mention the estate. It did not mention the inheritance from a leaner. It did not mention the outside obligation email. It did not mention 26 years of birthdays and milestones and quiet exclusions. It was an apology shaped to be small enough to be comfortable, an apology designed to close the distance without costing anything. Marcus looked at his father. He felt something complex that was hard to name. It was not satisfaction. It was not anger. It was something closer to the feeling of seeing something clearly for the first time and realizing you had been trying to see it in bad light for years. He said something to his father that he had spent months quietly composing, not dramatically, just honestly. He said, "Dad, I hear you, and I appreciate that you said that. I also want you to know that I am not angry. I am not trying to punish you. I just stopped being available for a relationship that was mostly one direction. I don't need you to fix everything. But I do need you to understand that what you are describing is not just Sylvia making things difficult. You made choices, you made them consistently, and I have spent 20 years accommodating those choices at my own expense. I am not doing that anymore, not out of bitterness, out of respect for myself." His father looked at him for a long time. He seemed to be searching for somewhere to put that. Then he nodded. He said he understood. He said he hoped things could be different going forward. Marcus said he hoped so too. They finished their coffees. Marcus drove home. He did not feel triumphant. He did not feel sad. He felt level, like a table that had been tilted for years had finally been set back on all four legs. What Marcus did not know during that coffee meeting was that his father had not come alone out of pure conscience. Something had happened that pushed the meeting forward. Marcus found out later through Diane, who found out through Cole, that Brett's business had collapsed. Badly, Brett had borrowed heavily against his father's investment and had made a series of poor decisions that had put him deep in debt. The same week Marcus's father called to set up the coffee meeting, Brett had asked for another significant sum of money. His father had said he needed to think about it, and in thinking about it, his father had apparently done some accounting of his own. He had looked at the household balance and realized that the person who had been managing his financial records for nearly a decade, for free, the person who had a professional understanding of exactly how everything was structured, was someone he had just quietly cut out of everything. Marcus did not know if his father's apology was conscience or strategy. Maybe it was both. That was the thing about his father. It was always hard to separate the two. 3 weeks after the coffee meeting, Marcus received a formal letter from Patricia Henshaw's office. Not a phone call, a letter. It was a notification that his father had requested an amendment to his estate plan and that Marcus had been reinstated as a beneficiary. Not to the same degree as before, the letter made clear that Brett was still named as primary heir to the main property. But Marcus and Diane had been formally re-included. Diane received the same letter. She called Marcus that evening. Neither of them celebrated. They sat with it on the phone together. Diane said, "Is this real?" Marcus said, "It is real, but it is not the thing. It was never about the money, you know that." Diane said she knew. She said the thing was the 20 years. The thing was the apology that only came when something was broken and they needed him again. Marcus said yes, that was the thing exactly. But there was one more layer. There is always one more layer in a story like this. Marcus had continued his documentation quietly throughout all of this, not as a weapon but as a record, because his accounting brain did not know how to look at a situation without creating a ledger. And in going back through years of family financial history that he had access to from doing his father's returns, Marcus found something that he had not gone looking for. During the year his grandmother Alina died, the year Marcus had not been notified about the will, the year every other grandchild had received their inheritance, Marcus's portion had been dispersed. It had not been withheld by accident. It had been quietly folded into a payment made to Brett's first business, the one that had failed before this most recent one. It had been absorbed. His grandmother's gift to him had been taken and given to someone else without his knowledge or consent. He sat with that for a week. He talked to Carla, he talked to Dr. Osa, he talked to Diane, he took the information to a probate and estate attorney named Victor Crane. Victor reviewed what Marcus had and was measured but clear. The original disbursement records and the paper trail Marcus had assembled told a story that was legally significant. Marcus had options, not guaranteed options, not simple options, but real ones. Victor estimated the original amount, adjusted for the years, and said that if Marcus wanted to pursue recovery, there was a reasonable basis to start that conversation with a demand letter before anything formal. Marcus told Victor he needed a few days. He went home. He sat in his living room with Carla and explained everything to her. She listened to all of it. When he finished, she asked him one question. She asked him what outcome would let him sleep the best, not what was fair, not what was technically owed, what would let him sleep. Marcus thought about it. He said he wanted his grandmother's gift acknowledged. He wanted it on record that it had been mishandled. He wanted it returned. He said he did not need drama. He did not need public humiliation for his father. He just wanted the ledger closed. Victor sent the demand letter. It was professional, precise, and cited specific records. It went in Marcus's father and was copied to Patricia Henshaw. Marcus was told his father received it on a Tuesday. By Thursday, Sylvia had called Marcus's phone 3 times. Marcus did not answer. Brett called once. Marcus did not answer. His father called Friday morning. Marcus answered this time. His father sounded shaken. He said he did not understand where all of this was coming from. Marcus said very calmly that it was coming from documentation and from the counsel of his attorney. His father said surely they could handle this as a family. Marcus said that the family option had been available for a long time but that certain choices had made a formal process necessary. His father was quiet, then he said, "Marcus, I never meant for any of this." Marcus said, "I know, Dad, but meaning and doing are different things." The letter stands. I did too. Okay, 11 weeks. There were 2 phone calls between attorneys, there were no court filings, there were no screaming matches, there was no public confrontation. At the end of 11 weeks, Marcus received a bank transfer. The amount reflected the original inheritance adjusted for time as Victor had requested. With it came a letter from his father, not long, not poetic, not a full reckoning. But it said something Marcus had waited 20 years to read in any form. It said, "I failed you in ways I cannot fully make right. I am sorry, Marcus, I should have protected you. I did not, I am sorry." Marcus read it once, he put it down, he picked it up again, he read it a second time, he folded it carefully and put it in a drawer, he sat down at his kitchen table. Carla came in and looked at his face and asked if it was okay. Marcus said, "It is the closest thing to what I needed." She sat down beside him, he said, "The strange thing is I do not feel what I thought I would feel." She asked what he thought he would feel, he said he thought he would feel fixed. Like the letter would close something that had been open. She asked what he actually felt, he sat with it. He said, "I feel like I proved something to myself, not to them, to myself. I stayed calm, I kept records, I told the truth. I stopped absorbing and the world did not end, I did not lose myself. I found out I was stronger than I knew and more patient than was ever good for me, and now I know the difference between those two things." He kept his relationship with his father. It was different from that point, smaller, more honest. His father called more consistently. He asked questions about Marcus's life for the first time, real questions, and listened to the answers. Whether it came from guilt or growth or some combination Marcus would never fully untangle, it was more than Marcus had had before. He accepted it for what it was and not for what he had wished it would be. That was the real change. Not that his father became everything Marcus needed, but that Marcus stopped needing him too. Brett never apologized. Brett barely acknowledged Marcus for the next 2 years. At the occasional family event Marcus chose to attend, Brett was stiff and performative, the way people are when they know the record shows them badly and they have not figured out what to do about it. Marcus treated him with the same even courtesy he would give a stranger, no warmth and no contempt, just civility. Brett seemed to find this harder to deal with than anger would have been, which Marcus understood. Anger gives people something to fight, calm requires them to sit with what they did. Sylvia said nothing, not one word, not even in the context of other conversations. She had been warm and talkative at family events before all of this in the performative way Marcus had always recognized. After the letter, after the transfer, she became quiet around him in a different way, not hostile, just still, like someone who has been caught and knows better than to say anything that could be used. Marcus did not need her to say anything, her silence was an acknowledgement in its own way. He did not pursue her, he did not avoid her. He moved through her presence the way water moves around a stone. Cole became, unexpectedly, someone Marcus grew closer to after all of this. Cole was the one in that family who had the least to gain from honesty and who had tried in his limited way to be honest anyway. He was not brave, he had not stood up. But he had sent the accidental photo and panicked and apologized and relayed information when Marcus needed it and looked genuinely pained by all of it. He and Marcus started having lunch occasionally, just the two of them. It was careful and sometimes a little awkward, but it was real. Marcus valued real things now above everything else. Diane became one of the most important people in Marcus's life through this entire period. She had carried her own version of the same story for years, and watching Marcus refuse to keep carrying his had given her permission she did not know she needed. She started therapy. She set her own limits with the family. She started a new job in a different city and built something genuinely her own. She called Marcus every Sunday the way she always had, but the calls were different now. Lighter, more honest. Like two people who had put down something heavy and were surprised by how much easier it was to breathe. Marcus and Carla got engaged the following spring. The engagement party was small. It was exactly the people who had shown up for Marcus when it counted. His mother was there, Diane was there, Dr. O's sent a card, his closest work friends were there. Cole came and was quiet and genuine and seemed glad to be included. Marcus's father came. He arrived a little early, which was new. He shook Marcus's hand and then did something he had not done since Marcus was a child. He pulled him in and held on for a moment. He said congratulations, so. And Marcus felt the weight of those two words as if they had taken 20 years to arrive, which they had. He held on for a moment too, then they let go. They ate good food, the evening was warm. At one point Marcus looked around the room and realized that everyone present was there because they genuinely wanted to be and that he was genuinely glad each of them was. He had not always been able to say that, he could say it now. The night after the engagement party, lying in the dark, Marcus thought about the 12-year-old boy who had sat on the floor of his sister's room holding her hand so she would not be afraid. He thought about everything that boy had carried. He thought about how long that boy had been waiting for permission to stop carrying it. He thought about how nobody was going to give that permission, how you had to give it to yourself, how the apology you wait for is rarely the thing that heals you. How healing turns out to be a decision, not a delivery. How peace is not something that gets returned to you. It is something you build quietly from what you know and who you are and the very clear understanding of what you will not keep accepting. Marcus was 39 years old. He had waited 20 years for one apology. He had gotten something close to it finally from a complicated man who had loved him poorly for most of his life. And he had learned with great difficulty and at great personal cost that the apology would have meant nothing if Marcus had not already done the harder work of not needing it the way he once had. That was not a thing he had understood when he was 12 or 20 or 30. It was something he understood now, and it was enough, it was more than enough. If this story reached you today, I want to ask you something before you leave. How long have you been the person who shows up? How long have you been the one who absorbs, adjusts, forgives, and keeps showing up for people who count on you being there but never really count you? There is a difference between being loyal and being used. There is a difference between being patient and being invisible. Marcus figured that out at 38 after 26 years of not knowing the difference. You do not have to wait that long. If this story gave you something today, drop a comment. Tell me where you are in it, because I promise you someone else is reading those comments and feeling less alone because of what you wrote, and that matters more than you know.